Hi, it's time for Saturday chat. Let me start with this one. Let's see if this will come through on the... So this was the dirtying up of the whole stage 1. Which has been done with 2 wood stains. Okay, so it's not glaringly in your face, but what you won't realize is that it's toned down that green and a bit of the blue significantly from a previous video. So if you go and look at that green and then you come back to this, so you'll also see the water line has been dirtied up a bit. Definitely not the way I want the final look, but this is looking quite toned down. So I think after another 2 stages of weathering, I'll be happier. I also sort of like this gradation. You've got the brighter blue here, and then it tones down as I've dirtied it up. So that was it was a brown that looks like this, which you don't realize how orangey that brown was. I just took a chance. Now there's actually 2 browns here. You see that darker brown and then this brown. The reason that looks more orangey is because I sprayed floor wax over that area specifically to see what happens. So that's that acrylic gloss coat that we put on a lot of the models. So that's the brown that I was putting on, and then a bit of darker brown as well. The darker brown actually was pretty good. So that was just being sort of dabbed on with this. I sometimes use the edge. This was not really what I was looking for. I couldn't find the right sponge. I was hoping for something with a lot less flat, just like random. So I was just testing a little bit of on there, and that's sort of what I was looking for and sort of what I got. But in the end, to actually get a lot of it down, I had to press hard on the sponge, and hence the dabbling effect is a bit too even in a sense. So it's some of it doesn't come through on the video quite as nice as it looks here, but definitely heading in the right direction, looking worn. So I just wanted to show this. I put some onto the plastic. I put some onto the plastic so that I've got practice areas to see what happens when I do certain things for the next levels of weathering, like what happens with thinners, what happens with gloss coats, and how fixed this is. One of them was a spirits based. The more orangey colored one was a spirits based stain, and the other one smelled terrible. I'm guessing closer to a turpentine base, and I'm slightly worried that because this is a painted hole and not wood that it's actually going in, it was intended to stain into wood, whereas now it needs to be on the surface of something. I'm still pondering how to handle the fix aspect of it. But at the moment, my plan is do another 2 layers of weathering, possibly one with paints. Who knows what, we'll think of it as I go along, and then seal it with maybe a varnish. I just need to make sure that the varnish doesn't suddenly dissolve everything again. At the moment, turpentine I think would take this off. But that's okay. If I can get away with spraying thinners and, well, sorry, not spraying thinners, spraying a clear varnish coat, could even hand paint, and then I don't need to have the varnish. But even paint might lift that off. So I just need to be a little bit careful on what I do, and then at least that is done. Right, there's been a little bit of a change in my approach on that, because now I have actually put A-frames part of the end frames, so there's still one vertical piece that needs to be done, but that won't be done in brass. I was pondering this issue of the center struts, and especially since there were holes through the fuselage, I felt like I was missing the opportunity to do something a lot more rigid on the inside here, and so I did that now, and that has come out really well. It fits the upper wing beautifully, so that gives me a very good base for doing the outer struts, which then don't need to actually be the main load bearers for manhandling and so on. I mean, they'd be good enough to hold the wing, but it's nice to have a model that doesn't just break at the first slight bit of pressure that you put on a certain area. So those go right through the fuselage. So I've sort of done a U shape up, and then another U shape, and that U shape bends forward and soldered onto there, cleaned up nicely now. I just did that before coming in here. I'm not sure that it's 100% centered yet. It sort of looks, yeah, I mean, it's very, very close, but it might need to go over just a little bit. Now, that means that I now can use the center blue tack blob, because now my center is so rigid that pulling out blue tack would be possible. So I can put a blue tack blob, center this, position it on there. I can even glue it on there. Then get to the outer struts and then slowly get that out. So sort of solved that problem there. That doesn't really mean that we've solved it for biplanes in general, although I do have another idea, which I'll do in a specific video for the restoration of that. During the week I was busy on these, and I wonder who knows what this would belong to. Okay, that's not quite getting on there. Is that getting on there? Not quite fitting in there yet. Bigger than a Lancaster. That is the old Frog Shackleton. Now, I'm still going to do a probably using this model, a little bit more demonstration on the keeping of all of those rivet lines, but having them sanded down so that you've got all the detail visually at the end of your spraying, but feel wise it's almost non-existent. So at the moment they've been sanded down to about half of their original height. This particular kit has got really, really high and weirdly large rivet lines, but they for all the you know, that you could say badly about this old Shackleton, which I think dates to the 60s as well, and it's, you know, there are areas of the kit which are pretty weak, you can still do not a bad job at all. And number one there is getting all that rivet detail down. So I've glued this on. Now, you know, I spoke about pinning Now this one I didn't pin. It has got, because of those, there's a little bit of glue area, and that gives it a little bit more rigidity, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see through there. No. So this line here is not actually touching all the way. I've got only about half of the touch area. I forgot to flat down on one of them, and I did flat down on that one. And what I mean by flatting down, I mean that before I put on the elevator, give it a little bit of filing so that the leading edge of the elevator would actually touch all of the surface onto the horizontal stabilizer. But I've still got a good joint. I'm not putting tons of force when I do this, but it's not just going to pop off. That's well glued there, but this one's even better. Now when I was putting this one on, just be aware that the extremity allowing for those hinge pieces that come into the elevator was stopping the elevator from going fully in. So you also had to sand off a little bit there. Now, I mean, that just comes down to test fitting and looking, test fitting and looking, test fitting and looking. Don't start gluing if you can see that the contact area just isn't good enough at that point. So once I had that right, put a little bit of glue on there, just get it roughly in position, then run a little bit of thin glue into that recess there. Do the same on the other side. There's a bit of aircraft noise in the background for you. I'm not sure what that is. We had the big air show last weekend. I didn't go to that. That's some hundreds of kilometers away. Okay, so that was the Shackleton. Now the Shackleton, I'm doing halves and I'm doing things here and there. Slowly doing things. The Phantom is not entirely on hold. I do intend to glue on the canopies, which I might be able to get to some part of today, but that missing piece is still stopping me from gluing on the front windscreen. So we'll see. I have no idea how I managed to misplace a piece like that. Okay, I found, well, when I say I found, I mean I've got so many packets of things stuck around everywhere. This is all of the leftover pieces from some German vehicle. Can't remember exactly what. And I took, this is the vehicle that I stole the tracks for to do the kit bash on to the Chinook. Was it the Chinook that I'm doing? No, it wasn't the Chinook. It was the 119 box car where I'm putting that big fat fuselage onto tracks. So that, but this kit was incomplete, which is why I was able to do that. Can't remember what was missing, but certainly wasn't able to be built as that item. But all the leftover stuff is now perfect for a further kit bash. I haven't thought of a plan, but I am keen to just slap together. You know, it's nice to just whip something together without making a huge mission on planning and research. And when I say research, I mean even though it's a fictitious thing you may be making, it's nice to sometimes just cut and glue and slap the thing together. So that's what I want to do here. I won't even suggest to you guys to comment what it should be. I'll just start making something. If you don't have a razor saw, I don't have one here right on the table. Razor saw, I don't know, that's not entirely the best name for it. But anyway, a thin modeling saw so that you don't remove too much plastic. If you don't have one of those, that's really, really handy for cutting up plastic for that sort of thing. Oh, I did forget to say something. On the halves of all of this, every single thing that I've held up so far, unlike normal kits, and I don't know if anything here is going to have that. Unlike kits where the two halves of something touch only on small areas, leading edge and trailing edge, obviously more on the trailing edge because it's so much thinner. This kit just has flat surfaces for all of these, entirely flat surfaces. And you need to flat those surfaces if you want to get a nice smooth without gaps on the leading edge and on that area. The elevators were one piece, but at least on the horizontal stabilizers too. To get a nice, crisp, clean leading edge, you need to flat the surfaces, and for that I use this size file. So I'm holding a half in my hand while and adjusting my fingers on the back to run this evenly across the surface. So I'm definitely not tilting in any direction and taking off too much there, and I'm visually looking at, you can see the difference between the shiny molded plastic and filed plastic, and you're filing it down until your file has reached the extremities. It tends to take off all in the middle, and that's because when they mold the part and it cools, it sort of almost bulges ever so slightly at the points of more massive plastic, which means if you don't flat it and you glue them, you actually end up with leading edges doing a bit like that. So to get them flat allows you to get the leading edge and trailing edge a little bit more seated. So yeah, use a somewhat heavy file. Believe it or not, I've even used an angle grinder on a model once. That was to take the lower hull off a model ship. It was pretty thick plastic, and I actually used an angle grinder. Was it the best idea? No. But not for the reason you're thinking, probably. It was a good idea for its ability to remove it, but the faster you move plastic, it just melts. So what was happening was it was removing plastic, but just building up melted plastic right behind the angle grinder. So a hacksaw is actually the correct thing there. This one. So this is actually, I think, one of the most difficult Airfix. I think this is the Airfix one, because I think Hella also did one. This might be the Hella. Doesn't matter, Airfix or Hella. This is one of the most difficult kits because the contact area of those skis is absolutely tiny. And yep, I mean, I've got this one. This one I just built some years back, just slapped together, actually a sort of a paint mule. So didn't really plan on much happening with this. I might continue painting it at some stage. So there's a bit of glue mess on the canopy, and but it's built okay. I just wanted to see if I could get the skis right. This was one of those models that, you know, you just put the thing down too hard and you break. Oh, it has broken one. Okay, it does have one joint that is not attached there. So amazingly, it holds up on only one. But with the front canopy and the top canopy, the large doors, and I sort of remember the fit not being great. I do like the Gazelle, and I have another one, so I will still build a nice one at some stage. But yes, that's a pretty difficult kit. I've got this one, which I did show in a previous video. This is from that brand that I really don't like because of the awful sprue layout and huge thick trees, and you can see the quality. Look at the edges of all of this. I mean, look at the edges of all of those parts. It is absolutely very bad. Look at that. And this has got, you can see mold release discoloration. I don't know if that'll come through on the video. It's got mold release discoloration. It's a nice topic. I like that box art. I like the helicopter. And this is probably one of those kits where I'll just build it without being too fussy, because of that same thing that I was saying about effort in accordance with quality of kit. So that doesn't mean that you can't make a nice, you can put in a lot more effort if you wanted to, but I get a little bit, I sort of feel like the effort is a little bit out of proportion. Now, so you might think, well, okay, but making nice parts for a little tiger moth is also a little bit out of proportion. Yeah, it sort of is, but in this case I am practicing my skills of being able to do that fairly quickly, so I don't mind, and it's a model that is part of my history, whereas this one is not. I did have a couple of thoughts about different topics to still cover. I wanted to say yes, thank you. The various folks are now starting to join the Facebook page, which means I'm getting to see a lot of some of your models, in some case a lot of your models, which is good, pretty good, and some nice stuff out there. Go for it. The more the merrier. It actually always impresses me the collections that some people have, and the fact that they've managed to keep them in good condition for so long in some cases. Yeah, keep that going. The YouTube channel really got an amazing boost from that one video on vintage kits, old kits, despite me thinking that that was really just a quick choice of content. So that's pretty good, and we are slowly gaining on getting to 1,000 subscribers. We'll count down till the 1,000th subscriber can win a high five, which might be, it might not be in this coming week, it might only be after that. Okay, so now that I've got this ready to put wings on, that's actually what I wanted to say on this. When I was talking to you about the outer struts, and I was saying, I'll get to the inner struts, we'll put them on afterwards. What I was doing there is something that I do commonly, which is put off a problem, not thinking that it's a problem, put off something, and then later you know it's a problem. So with that wing in position, if the struts were there, my access and ability to put in something for those these struts would be quite limited. So I was putting off a problem rather than addressing it up front, which is what I've done now. So I've solved a huge problem by getting that done, because the outer struts can now get in position. This holds the main strength, and that is something to watch. I don't know if it affects any of you guys, but I do tend, and this was one of those things where it's sort of a rush. I just want to finish and get this tiger moth back fixed and ignore that problem of the middle struts, and luckily I didn't. I just thought, well, I can get those in there, won't be too bad, and that has made that possible. Okay, happy modeling, and we'll chat again soon. Cheers.